Greetings, everybody. Keith here, hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. We're coming back at you again tonight with some more of the Universal Postal Union and their contracting documents. So let's go back. We've got the Acts of Congress, Universal Postal Convention. Going over definitions. At affordable prices. The last thing we talked about last night. And tonight we go on with transit et découvert. Open transit through an intermediate country. Open transit through an intermediate country. Now I want to ask you folks, if they offer freedom of transit to foreign countries as an intermediary for going through their country, what doesn't make sense about the American citizen having that same right or privilege of freedom of transit by the intermediary, the United States Postal Service, who is the representative? That's why it has a registered trademark. It's a registered trademark of the trademark holder, the Universal Postal Union. Now understand, under these treaties, particularly the Treaty of Bern, remember Bern, Switzerland? Okay, the Treaty of Bern is the protection of literary and artistic works, including the very constitution of the Universal Postal Union itself and all of its derivative documentation. Now, if they're the registered agent, again, like I said, as an intermediary, and you are from the original point of origin, then why is that not reciprocal? How come it is they're charging you for stamps? How come it is you people don't understand this very simple concept? How come it is you don't understand the simple concept of the credit, wherein it's an extension of credit, and in that extension of credit, they're supposed to give it back at some point. That's circulation. Just like an electrical current, it moves back and forth from point of origin to final destination and further back to its point of origin again. Of items whose number or weight does not justify the makeup of closed mails for the destination country. So again, if I'm sending it within the state of Iowa, even as they call it, that term, in the state, and then it's of Iowa, that's a federal jurisdiction. That's a federal territory within the boundaries of the state. So if I'm sending it from myself to a friend in another city just 20 miles away, why is there not freedom of transit by the intermediary in their own territory? Don't you get it? Does anybody have a problem with that? I mean, I think it's pretty clear to me. Greetings, John. How you doing tonight, brother?
Doing good, brother Keith.
So what do you think about that? Am I off base on that credit thing? I mean, it is a matter of extension of credit. Come on up, Russ. The link's down there. I'd love to have you up. Isn't that what we're supposed to be doing? In beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Isn't that where the true credence comes from, spiritually? And isn't that what we're supposed to be extending, is our spirituality? Because He is a respecter of no persons. I mean, stop me anytime you think I'm wrong.
No, Can't stop you. You're not wrong.
Well, I appreciate the agreement, but still, we only have two witnesses against the rest of the world, so it might still be a, a spiritual war in that. But yeah, all glory goes to Him, folks. So all credence goes to Him. He's the creator of all things, good and bad, dark and light, left and right, front and back, up and down, as above, so below, as within, as without, as without, as within. I don't see how you guys don't understand the reciprocity of credit. That's truly what's supposed to be reciprocal. So let's get on to the next one.
Yeah, but Keith, see, we're not putting any credits in. They're doing it. Isn't that a killer?
No, no, no. Mom gave credit right away. It was her word that gave credit to their system. And they
Greetings.
can't get it. Greetings, Russ. And they can't get it anywhere else. They can't create their own words. Again, that system, whether it be a definitive paper form system or the electronic system, it's the same thing as any other computer. It has to have an input. See, the electronic record is a computer that was mechanized in physical form by man before we created an actual machine to do it for us. It's still a computer operation. You have to compute things. Right brain, observances, hear and see. You have to have the eyes to see and ears to hear. And then you have to have the ability to discern it through reason and logic, so that when you put it back out through your oral speech or your actions, so others can see and hear, then that's where the confusion comes in. People think their discernment is the truth and it can only be a conveyance. And then other people take it as truth without realizing it's just a conveyance. And that's where we have false accusations. We've got to get out of that. What do you got tonight, Russ?
No, I mean I agree. I mean I'm not sure much more to say. You know, it is a spiritual war we're having, and a lot of people are claiming to be on this righteous path, and seems that they have become stagnant and comfortably numb where they're at, and I think they're off base with the money side of things for sure. Because
Absolutely.
I look at it when I look at the land as the wealth, and I look at the paperwork as the checkbook, and who's taking what. So,
Well, and this is something I've presented before. I want everybody to take a look at this definition again. This is from 15 U.S. Code 1602. Now, 15 U.S. Code is Title 15, which is Foreign Trade and Commerce. Now, that's the way it's titled, but in foreign trade and commerce, you've got two foreign countries, right? So there's your two parties. And then you've got a third party intermediary. This is the Postal Service, and it operates under a global postal trust services. So there's a trust already expressed in that communication with an intermediary there. Okay? Under 15 US code, which is actually trust code, thus the term credit card. Excuse me. Where is it? Maybe it's not this one. No, it's got to be here. There it is.
well, you
The
said
term
something a minute ago about those intermediaries, intermediaries.
right. They're the middleman, and they're the
Well, that's
trustee.
basically,
What's the middleman between a grantee and a beneficiary, a grantor and a benefactor? The middleman is the trustee in all
yeah.
cases, and it always expresses a trust in all cases. So here we have, this is L, subsection L of 15 USC 1602, the term Credit card means any card. So even that PayPal card, even that Social Security card, even the license in its card form, plate, including the license plate on that car for which you give a card. And then the nice officer gives you a coupon from his book or
Yeah.
other credit device existing for the purpose, pay attention, of obtaining property, labor, or services on credit. So, why do you need money if you can get property, labor, or services on credit? Because it's saying the same thing, that you can get money on credit. What do you think
Wow.
that credit score is? What do you think that credit score is? That credit score, that's a definitive record that they will print out in paper, known as commercial paper, and has a cash value as money, not credit. Don't you get it? Everything is credit. You have no money. Money is the paperwork you're filling out, and that's your problem. It is your downfall. Someone taught you to read and write. Penemu, one of the 220 angels cast down from heaven. And he wasn't supposed to teach you, but he taught you to use the pen, which is mightier than the sword, so you can kill people from a distance without even picking up a sword. But in that same power, it has the power of resurrection in salvation, merging the old damaged name, defiled name, into a new name. And it's a developmental process. It doesn't happen overnight. It's called bottomry, folks. You know, in salvage operations, greetings, King El Bay. In salvage operations, it's called bottomry because you can salvage a vessel all the way down to the last plank. And the last plank is generally the last one, the bottom board, where after all the others have fallen away from it, you found the bottom board. This is the same thing in piracy when they ask you to walk the plank. It's your last opportunity for salvation among the pirates. What do you got tonight, King El Bay? How you doing?
Hey Keith, I'm just listening. I mean, you've been dropping some good stuff. I've been just absorbing some of the stuff. It's the thing that is so ironic as I study and look. They're using so much biblical. They're using all three forms of religion. Actually, I'm listening. I'm seeing it in elements of the elements from the Quran, seeing elements from the Torah and the New Testament also. I see how, like, in Islam, they talk about a waqf, inalienable right of property, through a trust, through a religious trust, a foundation. And you always been right on the money. So I'm looking at the Quran as it talks about the orphans, right? It talk about you got to give charity. The orphans, you gotta keep their property to their age old enough. The practice of spiritual course in which, uh, okay, this course structure and manner of forming. Oh, that's where you get that book from? Yeah, I need
Right
that.
there. It's right there. Henry Concept.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
This is what the whole country is founded on, folks. You think there's a separation of church and state? No, there's not. See, in this Constitution, it combines religion and polity. When you understand the house of Judah, the lion is the one that speaks. It's the one that roars. It's the voice that you hear. That's what the scriptures are all about. See, it was the Lion of Judah that was allowed to continue its lines. Daniel was the one that Cyrus freed. He was the king of Persia and Media, the person in media. It's all a play on the words as they change and convert over time. And the person in media is the voice that's heard. So make sure it's a damn good one. Coin your words or purse your lips. The practice of the spiritual or ecclesiastical courts, to which is added a brief discourse of the structure and manner of forming the libel or declaration. So you can either make a declaration that is true in fact, that all of the libel in the record has zero weight because it was all a mistake. It was all an accident. You repent and won't do it again in their good name because they're the ones that gave the promise of good faith. I have faith. If you can stand up to that, then let's walk together. Otherwise, again, you're the one that's acting in bad faith. Greetings, Tony. How you doing tonight? You're muted, brother.
Well, thanks.
There you
nice
go.
to be here. I'm with my partner Jim here.
Greetings, Jim.
I'd like to give thanks. We received a copy of your FBU. Good. I'd just like to say thanks. Me and my partner Jim received a copy. Oh, again.
Awesome. Was that directly through me or off the site or? Did you hear me? Was that directly by me or off the site or
Yes,
what?
we hear you.
All right. Appreciate it. And if you guys don't know what he's talking about, I do offer a print copy of my faith-based union, as it's called at that point in time. Otherwise, reiterated on my site now as an unincorporated private association. And that's just showing that we don't operate in person. Though we've been granted a nationality of a United States citizen, we are allowed the benefit of using that person in a usufruct. As long as we acknowledge that, we can direct the credits for the proper use, not for abuse against me. That's 18 U.S.C. 1589 against forced labor. That carries like a 20 or 25-year sentence for any time they threaten to use or the use or threatened use of a law or legal system, whether it be criminal, civil, or statutory, means the use or abuse or threatened abuse. So just telling somebody that they're going to use one of these laws, codes, rules, and or something like that against you is abuse, and it's forced labor. They're going to say now that you're required to sign. There's no such law. That's a test. Again, the pen is mightier than the sword. So if the pen is mightier than the sword and it's a weapon you can't handle, then maybe you should just shut the fuck up and quit signing the documents.
You know,
they can't make you sign unless you have a full and clear comprehension of the capacities, obligations, duties, responsibilities, as well as the considerations and benefits, as well as any detriments of failure in those obligations. Go ahead, King.
Everything you said, I was reading it in Islam, and you right on the money. And I've been looking at the Torah. I've been studying all through books, and it's just not by coincidence. It's not by happenstance. It's not by just oh, we think this is what it is. So
Yeah, and that's that old adage, an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth is pretty much the same thing. You know, actions speak louder than words. So if you're gonna be an eye for an eye kind of guy, maybe be the guy that gives the eye first. If you've got something that's welling over you, that's to say, then maybe you should be the giver first. Recognize that you are the creditor. You're not the debtor. Who do you owe?
You owe it to yourself to be respectful,
That's about the
honorable.
best, yeah. Yeah, honor to oneself is the first and foremost thing. We've got to realize you can't help anybody else until you can show them that you've been able to fill your cup. My God, I can't think of somebody that's only got a fourth of a cup in my eyes trying to think he can help me fill my cup that's already overflowing.
Yeah. You know, I look at,
I have to have sympathy.
I see these guys out here in, shit. I hate that. I lose my train of thought.
Well, go ahead anytime then, brother. I'm gonna go ahead and get back to this real quick though.
All right, go ahead.
So where were we? We were at the Transit Aide de Couvert. Now, one thing I want to mention about this is later on we're going to find out that the language, the official language, and this is something I want everybody to pay attention to again. Remember, it's all about the grammar and the language and style and all that, right? So pay attention as we're reading this in English, and it tells us that the official language of this document is French. Then why for heaven forbid are we reading it in English? If the official language is this saying that this is not the official language and therefore it's for somebody that's not official? Is this an open public offering to the people of the world? Like I said earlier in this preamble, that's what it indicates. This is the wrong one. This is the convention. I'm talking about the preamble in the Constitution. With a view, that's the observant, the eyes to see, to developing communications, which is usually oral or verbal. This is why it's called corp orations. And corpse does not mean dead, it means body. And therefore, it's body oration. Therefore, your actions do speak louder than your words. Make sure you know what you're doing. Between peoples, by the efficient operation of the postal services. The postal services being the intermediary between peoples of the very countries that are contracting, who are the co-trustees of the peoples. Anybody got any question with that? Except that I wasn't showing it. Now what? Now what? Oops, we gotta blow it up again.
you know what's funny, Keith? They say ignorance of the law is no excuse. But when they're ignorant to the law and they're not following, they can justify their ignorance.
Well, yeah, and that's the problem. See, they justify their ignorance because they're just doing their job. And I'll remind you again, that reminds me so much of Hitler's willing executioners. Because now they're just going to point to their supervisor like they're going to throw the supervisor under the bus, when the only thing that's going to happen is that when it gets to the top of the line, particularly when it comes to people like myself, I don't like messing with intermediate yahoos. I want to go straight to the top. So when they get done messing with me, all of a sudden they find themselves thrown under the bus. So it's important to understand the language, folks. And again, it is simple language. It is plain writing. It is in English, for crying out loud, and not French. So let's get back to the convention on the next section. Article 2, designation of the entity or entities responsible for fulfilling the obligations arising from adherence to the convention. So one of the very most important things I can point out about this, let me see here, we're going to turn your mic off here, Tony. Just cut the feedback. So we've got before us, let me get it here. Designation of the entity or entities responsible for fulfilling the obligations arising from adherence to the convention. So what the record reflects so far is by that nationality, you are adhering to this and you don't even know what it is. You've got an identification that has a name on it. You don't know how important that name is. It's an import, export item. It's used specifically for commerce, traffic, transportation, or trade, known as the performance of the functions of public office. You've never done that. That's the 14th Amendment, folks. That's a public officer fulfilling an official office of title. You are entitled in that commercial system. Well, what are you truly entitled to if that's a legal title and you have an equity title? If that legal title is used in a debt system, then think you have 9 times the power as the creditor. Learn how to act like it. So let's continue on. As it goes, member countries shall notify the International Bureau within 6 months of the end of Congress. This is telling you, again, that's that communication with Congress. You have to let them know who you are. Know thyself. I'm not the person. I'm the living soul. And as the living soul, I guide the manual through this spiritual existence. Do you not know who I am? Of the name and address of the governmental body responsible for overseeing postal affairs. Who is the governmental body responsible for overseeing postal affairs? They say so themselves. The Global Postal Trust Services, Universal Postal Union. They're the ones that created these documents along with the International Parliamentary Union for the benefit of the royal houses who issue royal warrant holders entitlements as contracting officers. Within 6 months of the end of Congress, member countries shall also provide the International Bureau with the name and address of the operator or operators officially designated to operate postal services and to fulfill the obligations arising from the acts of the Union on their territory. 18 U.S.C. 8. Obligations and other securities of the United States. Pursuant to 18 U.S.C. 7. Special maritime territorial jurisdiction, and pursuant to 18 U.S.C. 9, United States vessels. That nationality you were conferred upon birth, known as a United States citizenship, is just such a vessel. But there is a stamp or other representative of value that they are obligated to. It includes all bonds. And guess what created all of those bonds that are being operated under administration throughout your entire life? The original bond that mom created through the hospital in a spell of illness. because there was no proper communication, ecclesiastical, of a libel or declaration. Member countries shall notify the International Bureau, as well as benefactors should be notifying the International Bureau with that declaration. I understand this enumeration at birth is going to create a bond that goes all the way up the line to the International Bureau according to the contract that the United States has contracted under as an underwriting for their Constitution of the United States. Of any changes in the governmental bodies as soon as possible. Any changes with regard to the officially designated operators shall also be notified to the International Bureau as soon as possible, and preferably at least 3 months prior to the entry into force of the change. So what was it entered into before? Before it was entered into regulation. And the only way they enforce it is through your belief. And until you learn how to substantiate that those beliefs are mistakes, errors, accidents, or otherwise, and that now, after you come upon certain knowledge, know better, and can bring a greater truth, you're going to keep being that sucker to filling out all those forms. When a member country officially designates a new operator, so there's a member country and they've already designated the operator, again, United States Postal Service is in fact the registered agent. It shall indicate the scope of postal services, not administrative, that the latter will provide under the acts of the Union. Now, in that services that they provide, one of those services they provide to the United States is a court system for administrative purposes. Do you get it? That's an administrative law judge sitting on that bench. And the judicial officer.
That's the SS-16.
Yep, and the judicial officers there. And then you've got the Postal Service Board of Contract Appeals, which is defined as a neutral and independent forum within the United States Postal Service, the registered agent providing all the services. And that is the Judicial Officer Department. Tell me how that can be rebutted. They put it on their site, and I've showed it many times. I'll show it time and again. It's the very site that gives you access to their judicial docket and not the administrative docket. Article 3, the Universal Postal Service. This is the one that referred us to Article 12. No, that was the Constitution. This is the Convention. And it says, in order, again, if the law is uniform throughout all jurisdictions, and in the Uniform Commercial Code it says an order is a draft, and a promise is a note, and vice versa. A note is a promise, and a draft is an order. So, in order to support, as to import and export, this is a supplemental porting, the concept of the single postal territory of the Union. So the United States Postal Service and the Special Maritime Territorial Union of the territorial jurisdiction of the United States is within one postal territory of the Union. And I remind you again, folks, the Constitution starts out to form a more perfect union. What union do you think they're talking about? Member countries shall ensure, again, insure and assure, insure and ensure, endorse and endorse very different things, that all users, customers, because you get to customize anything you enter into force, enjoy the right to a universal postal service involving the permanent provision of quality basic postal services at all points in their territory at affordable prices. Now, let me ask you, if you use that Federal Reserve note, you know, the thing they call money that isn't money, everybody calls cash, it's a debt note, it's a promise to pay. So, if you use a promise to pay in exchange for a stamp, what makes that different? Now, let me ask you, if you use a promise to pay to purchase an envelope, what's the difference? If you use that promissory note to purchase a toy car, what's the difference? Why is everybody using that Federal Reserve note and other things they call money to acquire the things they want or need, when the terms say that you can use any card, plate, coupon book, or any device intended to obtain money, property, labor, or services on credit? Whose credit? You're the one with the credit score, so obviously it's your credit. But yet somehow you believe somebody else can determine that credit for you, and that's true, because otherwise you determine that you're not only the creditor, but you don't need a credit score. Who the fuck is you? You're the debtor. Why are you asking about my assets? Don't you get it? Anybody got anything? I mean, that's a perfectly clear point. What does everybody think they're doing using credit cards that are meant and defined as to obtain money, property, labor, or services on credit? I don't care if it says debit card or credit card. It's to be treated as credit, because that was the intent. Not necessarily even by you, but by the very definition. Anybody can rebut that? I mean, again, if I'm wrong, please tell me.
I mean, I see it the same way. I mean, again, I look at the land as the wealth and the paperwork, the balance sheet.
Yeah, and that's what it's about, is a balance sheet. It's a dual balance sheet. And they're balancing their side and leaving it up to you as an obligation to balance your side. And until you recognize that, say, well, wait a minute. Not only can I balance my side, but I can settle this whole issue. And that's a very clear statement. I can settle this whole issue, wherein all parties will be made whole. And it's not because I'm going to sue you in libel, but because I'm going to make a declaration issue. That's what all issues are. It means is suable. That's what the clerk's praxis says. That's why the clerk is making all the issues. The judge makes the order pursuant to a party moving the court. So he puts the order in, but it's the clerk that issues it. That's the one that is suable. Okay? So let's continue on. Go ahead, King Elbay. Go ahead.
I was just looking at this term, maximum expressio unis establis exclusio autoris.
Yes, and that's when you read that in its English form. I don't know exactly what it says, but I can tell you pretty close. It's going to basically say the two became one. So again, it's not a matter of throwing off the government or anything like that. It's recognizing your power in that government and say, okay, well, you created this statutory person for my benefit. And so far, it's been held to my detriment. Here's the evidence. It's in the record. How do I know? Because I'm the one that put the data elements in there, and here's why they're wrong. And now that I know this, I can't do that anymore. So here's my remedy. People don't know how to communicate like that. They don't understand that that person was created for them. But since they can't use it in its official capacity, they still have the right to use it as an American citizen in their private capacity. And here, in our private capacity, anything we receive as benefit is a ship to party situation where I'm allowed to use a number in lieu of the name and address as a matter of protection, of the international protection of persons in the interest of American citizenship. Very simple terms that people refuse to want to learn. Kind of play that back and think about what I just said. I didn't use any technical terms, but I clarified there's a distinct difference between a United States citizen and American citizen, and knowing that you can still use it, but you have to go through a salvage process to resurrect all the debt that's been caused in that name, all the defamation, defilement, because it looks bad on the United States, because that's who it was created for, as another benefit, because on the other side of that obligation, there's an equal consideration for their interest. No one takes on an obligation without having equal consideration. In other words, that's their contract. And until you learn these contract terms and conditions and realize it's all indemnification, as long as you agree to the indemnification, say, hey, pal, I understand we all make mistakes. So instead of making false accusations against the United States or the bitch-ass slaves acting like Hitler's willing executioners, learn how to contract and shove it down their throat. There's not much they can do about it. They're just doing their job, and according to their job is a contract. Learn the contract and avoid all the contract points that aren't to your benefit, including having to communicate with babbling idiots. You want backroom private shit. It's not a matter of a public venue in a courtroom where everybody's in suit, filing suit. Issue.
Consent is law.
Absolutely. Most people are absent the consent and just are willingly signing because they think it's a benefit. So let's get back to it, because at affordable prices is where it's at. What is an affordable price, guys? Who's making this determination? With this aim in view, member countries shall set forth within the framework of their national postal legislation and by other customary means the scope of the postal services offered and the requirement for quality and affordable prices, taking into account both the needs of the population and their national conditions. When you were conferred a nationality, that was a contract, and there are conditions on it. They can either qualify the conditions or accept the impossibility that I've pointed out. I cannot be a resident by Iowa statutory code or the federal code. And by presumption, I was granted a nationality of a United States citizen upon the question, was I born in the United States? Finding out through my research that I couldn't possibly have been born in the United States, when Washington, or United States, is located in Washington, D.C. specifically, I had to put a question to it to find out the inconsistencies. And when I found out that the American Bar Association themselves can and will tell you, and have said so in public domain, as a matter of material fact evidence, there is no birth registration in the United States, says that the only evidence that I am a United States citizen by being born in the United States is false by my own admission. Now that I know I couldn't possibly have been born in the United States if the birth registration shows Dubuque, Iowa. Oops. Anybody got anything on that? Because that's the last thing I'm going to bring up when it comes to that. And I'm going to correlate it again with a couple other things. If the motor vehicle operator's lease requires you to give a handwritten statement of your intent to use the motor vehicle at least 50% of its use in your trade or business, which is then further defined as the performance of the functions of public office, and you've neither taken an oath of public office, nor have you written such a statement, then how can you be qualified under that motor vehicle operator's lease for failing to make the qualifying statement to make a testimonial fact of your intent? And it's not there. Second point is if it's defined in 7 U.S.C. 136 that animal includes all man, or includes man, includes but not limited to man. If you can't license an animal, then what is the distinction between an animal and a man as it relates to the conversion of an agricultural item to a commodity for buying and selling? It really is a spiritual warfare, folks. Anybody got anything?
And they use numbers. We don't need numbers.
Absolutely. It's all enumeration. Yeah. They do it to everything. That's why I point that out. 1 U.S.C. 1. Words denoting. Denoting. What is a note? It's a promise. What do you denote? Well, that means take away the promise. Denoting numbers, gender, and so forth. Not so backwards, but so forth in the future.
But
Promise. Promise. Pro means future, forward. Mais means bet. Means a future bet. What do you think insurance is all about? It's on a future bet that you won't get in an accident, therefore you won't have to make a claim. And therefore you'll just keep paying a monthly installment plan. Install, because you're a slave in a stall.
the thing that I look at, Keith, they a de facto government, de facto away from fact. So they use color, right? Color to get you under a colorable title that's based off all presumptions. But when you get in the courtroom, law has to be qualified. So they never say, where's your oath of office? Where did you make your declaration? Where did you talk to the governor to exercise that right 50% of the time? They never qualify that. So if you ask for a bill of particulars, asking for those things, they're gonna try to act like that. Oh, what is you talking about? They're gonna try to
I want to validate the debt. See, that's the problem. See, if they can't validate the financial instrument that originated everything, then they can't validate the debt. So that signature that mom gave as an informant is not completed with a certified statement of intent like the motor vehicle operator's lease would be. See, all of these contractions that mom had during labor was a dispelling of the truth. That's why you were born in a spell of illness. And when you were discharged as a man from mom's waters, that was a discharge of man, where you took the first breath of life and became a living soul, but somebody recorded it as a man still, as if though you didn't take your first breath of life, as if though you're not an act of God already. What is done is what ought to be done. There is nothing new under the sun. So learn who you are, what your purpose is. You are a redeemer. Ye shall do greater things than I. But again, my preface on that is that maybe he was trying to tell us that what he did with so little because it wasn't so bad in that time. We've got it much worse. We've got much more devious weapons, much more devious people, much more evil compounded in such small, tight places and quarters. Such bigger scabs on the Mother Earth that we're supposed to be living with. Kind of like avatars from the movie Avatar, NPCs, just like they talk about. But truly, I'm telling you, folks, this metaverse, this is the heroic imagination project. This is where you get to project your imagination of what your hero is by learning your characters, your credits in different personalities. This is why I've got 18 channels. Not everything's going to be the same, and I'm going to want to speak about it, but it's going to have to come from a different perspective psychologically. I can't stay in the same psychological mind for all those different kinds of experiences. That's what tells me I've got different personalities. The record proves that I act differently among different people according to the way they act. Don't you get it? I'd much rather fly with a flock of eagles than hang with a bunch of fucking turkeys.
Amen to that.
That's why I appreciate you guys coming up here. You'll notice my panel isn't so much about drama. I might speak and be kind of bold and harsh, but like I said, I speak boldly as I ought to, and that's AUGHTTWO as two witnesses, because I come with the Word of God, and He's here with me in every presence. I don't deny that anything anymore. Every breath I take is an act of God, and I'm going to do my best to express that. That's the message. It has nothing to do with Keith Little, El Perro, Heckle-Bus, or any of those 18 personalities. It has to do with the way of expressing it. That's an action. That's a verb. That's why even when you speak, it's verbal. Your actions can force others to do things, but that force can be positive or negative. Butterfly effect or a sonic boom that happens right away. Learn your power. Learn how to be that creator. Ye are gods. Ye shall do greater things than I. And again, because the world needs greater things done, you better step up. Anybody got anything against that? Yes. Jeremiah 1:5. You were sanctified and ordained by the word of God as He wrote it on your heart with the index finger of His right hand before He formed you in the belly, because He knew you. And that was the first communication. You know, that's why most children, when they come out, you know, it's not so much mom that they say first. A lot of times it's pa. It's a natural reaction. Pa, 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 pa. It's a more forceful expression than ma, ma, ma. And they get really excited when they see pa, pa. So pa, in its etymological form, through a conversion or an addition, der, der, der fa, der pa, pa der, was converted to fa-der. You are father. Don't you get it? You are father. Ye are creators. Ye are gods. Ye are Father. There is but one Father which art in heaven. This is your own individual heaven. Be the head counsel. You know this thing about all these vessels? You know what vessels are, right? They're the things that go out on the ocean, the law of the sea. They need a captain. Guess who assigns the captain? Guess who assigns the captain? It's the admiral that stands on the land. He's the one that sends his vessels out to investigate.
And you know what, Keith? And I wanted to say this earlier. This is why Jesus walked on water, right? He walked on water, right? Because you hit it, right? Because it is Admiralty maritime jurisdiction, but
Who did the disciples admire? Go ahead. I didn't mean to. I just wanted to say, who did the disciples admire? That's where admiral comes from. Go ahead.
So right, so they, like you said, they admired Jesus and he was talking about, hey, y'all with little faith. You know, you got to have you. We walk it in faith, not by sight. Your eyes would deceive you. They are the great deceivers. They would trick your eyes and trick your ears and trick your words. That's why I hear no evil, see no evil, and speak no evil. That's why they have to operate under the truth and lending, good faith all the time. We are
Regulation Z, folks. Regulation Z.
This is why we can walk on water. We can walk on the land while they have to walk on the sea. We can be our Christ, right? And learn how to walk on the water. And the more I as I started looking more as I learn from you and I do my due diligence, I just see everything.
And what's better than a man catching a fish than a fish catching a man? See, that captain of the vessel, those are supposed to be fishers of men. They're supposed to go out and gather good seamen for their vessel. Remember the definition of pollution the other night? To discharge semen without sex. So if they're going to discharge you guys, if they're going to discharge all you boys from the military, they got to give you sex. Otherwise, they're polluting. They're discharging semen without sex. Ooh. It could get real sick and perverted, but that's just something I projected. That's just a projection. Based on their etymology, it's semen, S-E-M-E-N, to ejaculate, to discharge without sex. So if that's the definition of pollution, it's only men that can pollute. And where did they get their definition of pollution today then? Is that a different definition? Did they kind of merge something there? See, it does get spiritual now, doesn't it?
And another thing I would like to say, Keith, I honor you in every way because this work ain't easy. A lot of people don't do the work. You know, we do the studying, we do and bring it the message. So this is our I can't turn back now. This is my duty. This is my obligation. This is my conviction, right? So I'm with you, brother. I'm riding the wave with you, and I support it because this is needed. So much suffering because people can't get out their own way, and then they've been coerced, tricked into this into Babylon, and they don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah, and that's why I pointed out, if those documents we're reading, the official language is French, then why are they in English? Well, it's a public offer, and that's the general language that most people are being trained to speak. So it's a plain writing document for our benefit. So we don't have to learn French in order to accept their offer. That's an open public offer. So all you got to do is accept it, but accept it in its proper capacity and your proper capacity. And like I said, everything's about adoption. So just adopt it and put a greater truth into it. You don't have to deny anything that's there. Just put a greater truth into it. So when they talk about the freedom of transit shall be guaranteed throughout the entire territory of the Union, you have to understand that that territory of the Union is an overlay of the land. It's just a fictional overlay. So as an admiral or a prophet unto the nations that have their overlay on the land, now you understand the capacity, hopefully, of being able to have a greater standing and bring the true word, which is that Psalms 121 verse 8 says, the Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth and even forevermore. And I know as Navy men, you have full faith in the Lord while you're out there on that sea, just as much as you have on the land. What say you? Am I free to discourse with our Father which art in heaven as we come and go, as to our pleasure, not the governor's? So are those credits considered taxable income for the performance of public functions of office? For the performance of the functions of public office, yes. You pay taxes on those. They take out Social Security and FICA every time you get a job and fill out that W-2 and instead of the W-4. So you're supposed to be filling out the W-4 exempt. That's a private agreement between the employee and the employer, not the IRS. So you leave the IRS out of it by filing exempt with that W-4, and they just shut up. It is that simple. Taxes are voluntary, folks, and it's not a three-party contract. All contracts maintain privity. So if you're going to contract with somebody and they demand that you pay taxes, you can say, no, thanks, I don't want to accept that clause. I don't want a third-party contract with the IRS getting into my other businesses in my lifetime. Know what I'm saying? It's a protection clause. You could put that in there to protect yourself from any detriment of future or current third-party intervening in a private contract. So all of those taxes that you paid in and the stuff that went to Social Security and FICA every quarter or every week as they took it out of your check, but they only put it, but what they do is they put it in their general deposit in their account, and it collects up interest. Then every quarter they pay their payment to the IRS. Now the IRS has it, and it sits in their account so they can gain interest. See what's happening? In the meantime, everything that you paid in the quarter goes to Social Security as insurance credits because your performance in the functions of public office was to take on the suretyship that was already there, already contracted. And instead of stating that you were coming in as a third-party benefactor, not to your any detriment, but to take benefit as the benefactor, they can't put any liabilities or obligations on you. The only obligation you have is truth, and that is to make sure that anything they want from you, if they enter it in the record, it has to be correct, and only you can tell them that correctness. Everything they do under a legal fiction is, in fact, a material presumption, period. You have to give them a greater truth. I'm not a United States citizen. The United States citizen was a nationality conferred upon me at enumeration at birth that I could use in the usufruct system for the commercial transactions that I can obtain money, property, labor, and services on credit. It can't get any simpler than that. I am not the debtor. The United States is a debtor, and they are located in Washington, D.C. Now knowing that, there is no physical United States. It is merely the record. And being merely a record with no enumeration at birth or birth registration in the United States itself does not have one record of a United States citizen. In fact, it still, if it reports any United States citizen, remains a presumption. No one has ever been born in a document. Can't happen. It's impossible. There's no definite border of the United States. It is an overlying territory for special maritime territorial jurisdiction, an extension of their debt, not credit, debt to the 50 states that ceded their jurisdiction to the United States. So they too could operate in debt and being wholly funded by the United States. They cannot say, oh, this doesn't have to do with Constitution, so we're not going to listen to that. Oh, this doesn't have to do with federal code, so we're not going to listen to that. Yeah, you will. You're an administrative law judge, and there is a judicial officer, and this is pursuant to a postal board contract.
Yeah.
And
Governments
what
are like a
they
skin
hold in
disease.
their administrative record is an allegory accounting, isn't it?
Absolutely.
You might get a better.
And it's based on your allegory, though.
Right,
It's
because
based
you're
on
the
your belief.
you're the agricultural presence.
Right. If you believe that you owe the United States a $1 Federal Reserve note that you're not even supposed to be using, in order to get a stamp, to put on an envelope, to have them do their job that they're already obligated under, then that's your allegory. That's how you read this system. You read the allegory as if though you are a debtor. That's not the allegory. Again,
No, because
Jesus came as a redeemer.
I don't know.
No one owes debt anymore. So why is everybody still presuming, even if they follow the way of Jesus, that they're a debtor? And then again, far beyond that, Jeremiah 1:5 again. We were sanctified and ordained as prophets unto the nations. And that sanctification and ordination merely means to speak the truth. Why do you need to follow Jesus? You can still see it in many other people. Jesus isn't the full-time Savior. Again, he simply showed us a way, and that was merely to speak the truth and put down anything that would be false. Are you the King of the Jews, if that's what you say? If that's what you say, what are you really saying? It's a big difference. So anyway, that brings us to the end for tonight. I will be back again tomorrow night with another section. We'll keep going on this until we're done. Like I said, from here on out, it's going to go a little bit faster. But hopefully sometime tomorrow, sometime in the early afternoon, I'm going to come back with some postal terms. I'm going to come back and do a stream on some postal terms. That one might take some time. I hope to have some people up on panel to discuss these as we open some more eyes as to what the terms and conditions really say, coming directly from the horse's mouth. So with that, anybody got anything to say on our way out?
Thanks.
No,
hey, Keith, am I
just-
coming through?
You are, Tony, you are.
Okay.
Feel free, brother.
I had a
Yep.
question regarding what you're talking about with the benefactor from a beneficiary, because I'm a benefactor on a living trust where I'm co-beneficiary for a house that my mom left behind for me and my sister to
And
apply
she's the
for
other
a
co-beneficiary?
shareholder form to try to include me as a U.S. citizen, right?
Yeah, and they can't do that.
So anyways, I denied that and told them that I couldn't do that. And I can't give them my number because it's private information and it's under investigation and this stuff. So I asked him what he
Right.
needed it for. And he just said that, well, your sister's got an investment here and I just want your information because the Department of Treasury needs it for when it sells.
Yeah.
Because they want to, or he didn't really
Yeah.
get into
Well, yeah, if
information,
your sister
but,
defaults on that, they want
at
to have
first I let him
property
know I
come
can't
and get.
do it. And then he jumped to the W-8 beneficiary.
Yeah, see, and that's all for tax purposes. That's all voluntary. You're not required to pay tax, and you don't want to
Okay.
enter in a third-party
But anyways,
intermediary.
then he says, well, right, he's the accountant, I guess, for the lawyers, where they obviously it's a public trust. It's not private. They got lawyers to set it up. So I let him know I
And that
can't
was
do
the
that.
problem.
And then he's
And
like,
that was
well,
the problem.
what you can do is do a W-8 beneficiary.
Listen,
And he tries to do that.
listen. That was the problem.
Go ahead.
Okay, let me help you guys understand. If there's a living will and testament, and mom or dad named beneficiaries, co-beneficiaries, and stuff, that's a private trust. Okay, and that's supposed to be an execution of a will of a testator pursuant to their testimony and their will. You don't go get an attorney and enter it into a probate court, and that's exactly what happened here. You've got to quit doing that. This is a private issue, and as soon as you hire an attorney to make a representation, they will take that estate. It's done. It's over with. You have to rescind and say, listen, I don't want to hire you as a representation. I need to hire an attorney, a private lawyer, for admission of facts and filing documents to help clarify with me what I am doing, and not to represent and steal the estate in a probate matter. See, there's already a testator's will. To enter it into probate says there was no testating will. Does that make sense?
And if you use an attorney, he only supposed to be acting as a witness.
Yeah, sure. I heard most of that. Yeah, that because it was it's set up as a public trust, and I gave him no information, but well, actually, he started talking about how just that
How did an attorney get? How did an attorney
the
get involved
IRS
with?
is going to tax. He says, well, no, it's the accountants. I guess the attorneys hire the accountants to take information for my sister's trust. And
Well, why did she have an attorney for her trust?
so
and
I
why
guess
are they
the
trying to dig
accountant is
into
a
a
third
private
party
trust?
information to try to tell me that the trust will not be taxable as a U.S. citizen.
Yeah, but it's still going to be
I don't have
taxable as some
I'm
kind
just
of business
sitting by as
entity.
benefactor, which I wasn't aware of.
Yeah, and they're going to try to administrate it as a corporate entity for their benefit. Again, if there is a testating will, then they're not supposed to put their grubby hands on it. I don't care if sister's got a living public trust or not. That is commingling funds. That is strictly against the law. Isn't that right, King El Bay? Isn't that the way you interpret as well?
Okay.
Yeah, commingling.
That's
You
why
got.
I'm bringing this up just to share it. It'll be taxable with the W-8 foreign status. Isn't that backwards?
You shouldn't be filing any
Or
tax
is it both
forms at all.
taxable?
You shouldn't be filing any tax
Right.
forms at all. It's none of their business. It's a private trust, and somebody is trying to commingle funds to make it their business and make it taxable. Simply by saying it's a non-taxable trust doesn't mean that they're going to stay out of your business. That is actually telling you that they're determining what is taxable, and under that trust, they can tax anything they deem taxable.
The purpose of that's why I always
was
tell
picking
people.
up on that, but I wasn't aware of the benefactor term. Took me into filing a W-8 beneficiary status and a. Go ahead.
Yeah, the benefactor is the one
Tried to
that
keep
gives
myself
to
in a
the
private
beneficiary.
status and a state citizen.
Yeah, and even the
Right.
state citizen isn't right. Get a hold of the American Citizen Services. American Citizen Services. Ask them what they can do to help you out. A 98 trust is still a public trust, and that LLC has a bunch of trustees. You're not supposed to be acting as trustees. You're supposed to be acting as a benefactor, bringing a greater truth, the greater facts that really benefit people, and that is the true knowledge. Knowledge is the benefit, not the position. It's not about me. If you want a position, I am the go-through. I am the pass-through. The credence comes from him. All glory goes to God.
You know what's so funny about, because I was reading the IRS and I was going through their manual very extensively. Like, if you set up your trust, you don't have to file nothing with the IRS. They have a religious test. Like, they have this 14-point test. If you meet, I think they say about 11 of those points, then they'll qualify you and you will get your exemption. And then all you will have to do is present that exemption wherever you go. Especially if you get the federal exemption. Like you can get it with your tax. Because when you have an exemption, you are immune from the jurisdiction because you're not in it. That's why when Jesus said you can be in it but not of it. All of these people requiring you to give your social and all of that. We supposed to be running around with our exemption paperwork, our religious documents, and giving it to them. And if they compel you to perform, that violates the 13th Amendment. That
Yep,
is
and that's
military servitude.
that diplomatic counselor. You have the right to seek counsel, right? So if you are the counselor, again, the prophet unto the nations, you're not in the nation, but you're superior to it. And you have to have that mentality. Otherwise, you're going to keep subjecting yourself to their documentation when there's no actual requirement for you to sign. Your yea is your yea, your nay is your nay, and your actions will always speak louder than your words. So make them good. This is a faithful saying. I will that thou confirm constantly. He who believed in God, be careful to maintain good works, for these things are good and profitable unto men. Shouldn't be anything less. That's the full faith and credit. All glory goes to God, and he who believed in God, that's the glory, and that's the faith, that's the credit, and it is a faithful saying. And again, that's another one without Jesus, just so you know. I mean, again, Jesus is a grand story and a path and the light and the life, the light, and the way. And you can be the same thing. It's all about paving that path. Pather, father, fodder. Anyway, anything else, guys?
No, I just wanted to touch on that. Action speaks louder than words, and I know what that. When I realized the true value in that statement is when you start to see people's actions, and by based on their actions, see what's scribed on their hearts and souls. I mean, there's some evil people out here, and you know, I just wish they would give themselves more time and look into themselves. But other than that, always a pleasure, Keith. And I'll jump out of here. Be the change you wish to see, people. Popularity without a positive purpose is pointless and valueless.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, brother. Appreciate your support. And John, or excuse me, Tony, um, my email is in the details section down below.
Yes.
If you ever want to email me, feel free. I can discuss this stuff with you more and show you various different points. Like I said, they are in fact commingling funds when they do that. And thank you, King L Bay. Appreciate it. Feel free to come back anytime. I appreciate your support. You got anything to say else on the way out? And like I said, just feel free to email me if you have anything more. You dropped out there. You got anything else?
Just basically, I was going to talk about the structure of how the agencies that handle the inheritance things. You talked about the Department of Public Health. They're involved with Department of Treasury as these agencies. They commingle.
Right. Yeah, and that's another thing. That's one of the things I would tell you is the Health and Human Services folks
The
is
State Department of Public Health.
right, and that's Health and Human Services, um, whatever they call it in your state. They're the ones that are responsible under federal statute and codes to assist in a state recovery. And again, like I said, all of those court actions as a corporate entity are known as probate courts. And the Scott versus McNeil says that the court of probate has no jurisdiction over the estate of a person who is in fact alive. And this is Library of Congress. You can look it up. Just Scott versus McNeil, MC capital NEAL, Library of Congress, and it'll pull that case up. And they will reiterate that same like statement several times in different ways throughout that entire case. So it's a very important case to understand and learn how to enforce yourself. Listen, that's my mother's estate, and it was supposed to be executed in private. Somewhere along the line, somebody entered it into these probate courts saying there was no living will. How dare you? One simple basic concept destroys their entire case. It did have a living will. It's right fucking here, and it
Okay.
says none your
Are you
business.
saying that? Yeah.
See, they're commingling. They're taking that
Right.
private estate and making it their business so that they can make money off it. And by the time you're done, there's no estate left for you or your sister. And then they come back after your sister for the public trust that she's involved in and take any property that might be left. It's a scam. I assure you. I'm not going to call it that, but I said it. So now you can say, I heard it's a scam. Okay? I'm your plausible excuse. Let them prove otherwise. Again, it was a private estate trust. There was a living will. And it named you and your sister, no one else, right? It didn't name the attorney. It didn't name the county. It didn't name the state. I'm sure of it.
Right.
Yes, even just getting having a notary sign on it. You don't need a notary. You have goddamn first-hand witnesses, and you put a line down there that says profession, and you have them all put down not a professional skill or anything, but the simple word truth. That's my profession. I guarantee you, they start getting documents like that with 3 signatures, say profession, and everybody puts down truth. They'll start getting a clue. But the first thing that's got to happen is you people have to get that clue first. So anyway, I appreciate you coming up, and I hope you come back. I hope I'm not too harsh for you, but
Oh no, I'll
sometimes
appreciate it.
sometimes that's what it takes. Is I'm just tired of full-grown adults acting like children still. So again, I appreciate everybody's support. Please hit the like, share, and subscribe buttons on your way out. And remember, folks, the PayPal button is there for anybody that wants to share some love, and every little bit is appreciated. And know that I love you, but I don't give a rat's ass whether you love me back. So may God bless you, and have a good night.